I promised to never love again. Until I saw a waitress caring for my daughter like her own. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday, just like any other. The coffee shop buzzed with the usual morning crowd, yet I felt the weight of the world pressing down on my chest. I sat in the corner, staring blankly at my untouched coffee. That familiar lump in my throat wouldn't go away. Emily was everything to me. My heart ached just thinking about her laughter, the way her tiny hands grabbed mine, the warmth of her cheek against my arm. But after the accident, my heart had turned cold. Love felt like a trap, a cruel joke. I had promised myself I wouldn't feel again after I lost her mother. And yet, here I was, frozen in the warmth of memories that felt like shards of ice. I looked around. My eyes fell on a waitress. She moved with a grace that seemed out of place in the chaos. Her hair was wild, a cascade of dark waves, lips painted a vibrant red. She smiled as she served customers, her eyes bright and alive. But it was more than her beauty that caught my attention. It was how she interacted with the children in the cafe. With each plate served, she leaned down, whispering secrets, handing them crayons, her laughter echoing like sweet music. And then I saw her, kneeling down to my daughter, Emily, who was shyly clutching a crayon in her small hand. I held my breath, my heart pounding. The waitress spoke to her, and Emily's face lit up like 1,000 suns. When that waitress brushed a stray hair from my daughter's face, my chest tightened. No one had ever cared like that for her since everything fell apart that I never wanted to feel anything again. Yet, something in the way the waitress gazed at Emily, something so genuine and tender, pulled at my heart. It felt like a restless whisper, a soft call of hope in the midst of my despair. But was it real? The warmth in her eyes, could it be trusted? The cafe around me faded into a blur. My heart raced as I locked eyes with her. She smiled, and for a moment, the world stopped spinning. Did I see a flicker of understanding? A hint that maybe she too had a story, a burden to carry? Just then, a loud crash echoed from the back, shattering the moment. Patrons gasped, heads turned, and the waitress' smile faltered. I stood up, adrenaline pumping through my veins. What just happened? I felt the gravity of that moment drawing me in. I could see her trembling hands, the way she tried to regain control, the way the trust she had built was wavering. I wanted to reach out, to help, but the fear held me back. What if she was just like every other person? What if I fell in love, only to lose again? The sensation of her kindness haunted me. Would I risk it all? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The aftermath of the crash left a palpable tension in the air. The waitress, whose name I didn't yet know, quickly rushed to what had toppled over a tray of dishes, now scattered across the floor. For a moment, I could see the embarrassment wash over her face, the flush creeping up her cheeks. My heart ached for her. How was it that in this moment of chaos, she still managed to glance at Emily with a soft smile, as though hoping to lift her spirits? It was both beautiful and heartbreaking. As a few customers helped her gather the shards and utensils, I remained frozen, grappling with my own internal battle. But amidst my uncertainty, I took a step forward, the instinct to protect demanding my attention. "Let me help," I said, my voice shaky yet firm. "No, really, I got this," she replied, but her eyes betrayed her. They darted nervously between the mess and the little girl in the corner, who still held the crayon as if it were a lifeline. "Please," I implored, kneeling beside her, feeling the threads of my heart unravel as I joined her on the floor. "It looks like you could use an extra hand." Together, we gathered the broken pieces, her hands trembling slightly as we worked in tandem. I couldn't help but sneak glances at her, marveling at the strength embedded in her fragile demeanor. "You're really good with kids," I said, the words escaping my lips before I could think them through. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment time stood still, a shared understanding passing between us. "That I try," she said, a bashful smile creeping back onto her face. They deserve a little kindness, don't they? Her words resonated within me, rattling loose the walls I'd built. You're right. They really do. As we finished cleaning, I caught a glimpse of Emily watching us. Her curiosity piqued at "What's your name?" I finally asked, sensing the connection growing in the silence. "Lila," she replied, brushing off her apron. "And you?" "Luke." "Nice to meet you, Luke." She extended her hand, and I grasped it firmly, a charge running through me that startled my senses. The world outside seemed to fade, replaced by the warmth in her palm. But just as the moment bloomed, a loud wail cut through the air, yanking me back to reality. I turned to see a mother frantically searching for her child, panic etched on her face. In that instant, I saw a flicker of fear mirrored in Lila's eyes. It was as if she could feel the weight of that loss. My heart raced as I recognized the mother's anguish. "Do you want me to help?" I offered, not relinquishing my hold on Lila's hand. "Yes. Please." She nodded, her focus sharpening. We sprinted toward the mother, who was now crouched beside a play area, calling out her child's name. "Hey, it's okay," I said, crouching beside her. "We'll help you find him." Together, we scoured the cafe, calling out names. Every heart-pounding moment stretched, silence and chaos colliding in the air. I caught Lila's reassuring gaze as we turned, sharing a determined nod. I hadn't expected to feel this sense of camaraderie with a stranger, but here we were, united in our search. Just when it seemed all hope might be lost, an excited shout rang out from the back room. "Mommy!" A little boy ran out, his smile radiant. As the mother swept him into her arms, tears of relief rolled down her cheeks, and I felt my own heart swell. "Thank you," she gasped, her eyes gleaming with gratitude. Lila and I exchanged relieved smiles, a bond forming in the wake of shared anxiety and fleeting relief. But as the moment settled, an unspoken question hung between us. How long would this connection last? "Maybe I should go back," she murmured, glancing toward the scattered tables, the mess we had walked away from. Before I could formulate a response, a flicker of something dark crossed her face. "But thank you." Truly, the warmth in her voice was a balm. Yet I could see shadows lurking behind her smile. The burdens she carried were heavier than I had first anticipated. "Lila, are you okay?" I asked, my heart sinking at the thought of her returning to her chaos alone. She hesitated, her eyes revealing a flicker of doubt. "Just, some days are harder than others." That I wanted to reach out again, wrap her in the warmth of a promised kindness, but fear held me back. I know what that feels like. The tension hung in the air, charged with potential and uncertainty. It was a moment suspended, both delicate and heavy. "They'll be okay." "Really?" she replied, but her tone suggested otherwise. And just as I thought I could build the courage to ask for her number, to explore this strange rhythm between us, the bell over the cafe door jingled sharply. A figure stepped inside, and my stomach dropped as I recognized the silhouette. Emily's mother alive. In that chaotic instant, everything I thought I knew shattered. My breath hitched in a strangled gasp as memories rushed back, fierce and unyielding. What was she doing here? The hope I'd felt moments before lay shattered, edged by fear and confusion. I was torn between two worlds, one wrapped in tenderness and blossoming hope, the other shackled in unresolved grief. "Luke?" Lila's voice broke through, her concern palpable as she turned to face me. The ground beneath my feet suddenly felt unstable. I could hardly process the weight of the revelations to come. Would I cling to the illusion of new love, or would I fall back into the abyss of my past? But as the door swung shut, sealing the moment, I sensed an inevitable truth creeping in. I had to confront the past or risk losing the present. The air shifted, charged with an intensity that made my heart race. As Emily's mother stepped further inside the cafe, a hollow chill ran through me. I had envisioned this moment 1,000 times: the confrontation, the explanations, the unraveling of a bond that had stitched itself through the remnants of what was lost. But nothing had prepared me for the reality of seeing her again, the woman whose absence had left a gaping hole in our lives. "Mommy!" Emily squealed, her small voice ringing clear as she spotted her mother. I blinked, a fierce protective instinct going into overdrive as I stood rooted to the spot, watching their reunion unfold. It felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, Peering down into the tumultuous waters below, her mother dropped to her knees, wide-eyed with disbelief as Emily launched herself into her embrace. The air filled with the sound of muffled sobs and whispered apologies as they clung to one another, oblivious to the world around them. Part of me wanted to hate her for leaving, for the grief she had thrust back into our lives, while another part of me remembered the love that had once bound us. Luke? Lila's voice cut through my turmoil, her concern evident. I turned slowly to see her stepping toward me, a crease forming on her brow. Are you all right? I met her gaze, feeling the weight of unshed tears pushing against my eyelids. I need to go, I managed to say, my voice strained. I wanted to run, to flee from the emotional chaos that had spiraled out of control, but something deep inside me rooted me to the spot. Wait, Lila said, reaching for my arm that I shrugged away her touch, a pang of regret piercing through my resolve as I stalked towards the reunion. The warmth of her kindness faded behind me, overshadowed by the rising tide of my past. Where have you been? I heard Emily's mother say, her voice a whimpering plea laced with confusion. Emily clutched at her mother's shirt, her little fingers trembling. I was with Luke, she exclaimed, beaming with pride as she pointed toward me. He helped find you. The attention swung back to me, and I felt suddenly exposed, a deer caught in headlights. Her eyes, so familiar yet foreign, flickered with the same dark storm I had once loved, and I felt time folding in on itself as memories rushed back, memories of laughter, love, and the life we had once envisioned together. What are you doing here? I pressed, my voice rising against my will. The walls I had built edged closer, threatening to swallow me whole. You just left, you disappeared without a word. Luke, listen, she said, her eyes widening as she stepped toward me, but I backed away instinctively, the space between us an insurmountable chasm of hurt. I didn't mean to leave. Life had just got overwhelming. I was scared. You have to believe me. Behind us, I caught a glimpse of Lila watching from a distance, her expression pained yet fierce. She was still battling her own inner demons, yet here she was, caught in the crossfire of my unresolved life. I have to go, I said, the urgency in my voice underlined by the tightness in my chest. Emily needed me to be strong, to be grounded for her. I had to shield her from this chaos. The gentle touch grazed my arm. Lila had moved closer, her eyes filled with empathy. Please don't walk away, she urged, her tone thick with raw emotion. You don't have to face this alone. We're all just trying to figure things out. I glanced between Lila's earnest gaze and the eyes of the woman I once thought I knew intimately. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and run, to escape from the reality that had stormed back into my life. But as Emily clung tighter to her mother, I saw the fragility in their reunion, the stark reminder that love is often a double-edged sword, and healing is anything but linear. The tension hung thick in the air around us, suffocating and intimate. It was as if the room was rotating around us, each moment ticking away with agonizing deliberation. I was tethered between two worlds, one that promised hope and tenderness in Lila, and another steeped in pain and longing with Emily's mother. Luke, Emily's mother implored softly, desperation lacing her voice. Can we talk? I want to explain. I need you to understand why I had to leave. For a heartbeat, I felt the familiar threads of our past tugging at my heart, pulling me back into the noise of lost moments. But then I remembered the warmth of Lila's hand, the way she had smiled at Emily, and how, even in their fragility, there was an undeniable strength. Let's talk. But not here, I finally said, my voice stronger than before. Not in front of Emily. The words hung like a lifeline, swinging between the three of us, each awaiting the path forward. Lila looked on, and something unbreakable seemed to spark between us, a silent agreement that whatever we faced next, we would confront it with resolve rather than fear. Yet, my heart remained restless, the clashing currents of my past and present swirling chaotically within me. And just as I turned to lead them outside, the familiar sound of a child's laughter rang out again from the back room. My stomach dropped when I recognized the voice, another child, another little boy laughing, and my mind momentarily blurred as the echoes of my past collided with the present. Somewhere deep inside, I felt a new storm brewing, one that threatened to unveil further truths I had yet to confront. And at that moment, I knew that my journey was far from over. The cafe door swung shut behind us as we stepped into the brisk air, the lingering warmth of the cafe replaced by the cool outside world. The momentary reprieve from the intensity within those walls threatened to crack open a dam of emotions I had been holding back for far too long. Emily's joyful chatter filled the silence, her face aglow with a happiness that was infectious. "Can I have ice cream, Mommy?" she asked, her eyes shining like stars. Two worlds collided as I watched Emily tugging at her mother's hand. Every smile exchanged between them drawing me closer to an abyss filled with longing and resentment. "Maybe later," her mother replied, her tone bright, yet overshadowed by an undercurrent of uncertainty. I felt a pang in my chest as I watched them. The bond was palpable, yet my heart ached knowing how complicated it had become. Lila stood a few paces behind us, her presence a silent support. I could sense the tremor in her body, a delicate balance of fear and hope as she glanced between the two of us, as if assessing the weight of the emotional burden we carried. I hadn't asked for her to be involved, yet here she was, having stepped onto our jagged landscape of grief and confusion without hesitation. I turned my focus back to Emily's mother, whose face had turned a shade pale under the pressure of scrutiny. "Can we talk in private?" I prompted, gesturing toward a quieter corner of the street where the noise of the cafe faded into the background. She dipped her chin in agreement. As we walked, the atmosphere buzzed with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I chose to remain silent, letting the weight of the moment settle between us. Each step felt heavy with possibility, but also with a dread that sank deeper with every breath. When we arrived at a secluded bench, I gestured for her to sit. Emily plopped down beside her mother, visibly comforted by having her back. It shattered my heart to see her innocence twined with uncertainty. The purity of her joy at being reunited was a stark contrast to the turbulent emotions swirling around us. "Please, Luke," her mother began, her voice trembling. "I know it's been years, but I've thought of you every day. I never wanted to hurt you or Emily. I don't understand how you could leave us without warning," I replied, the hurt spilling from my lips before I could stop it. "We loved you. We needed you. I know that now," she confessed, her shoulders sagging under the weight of regret. "When it got tough, I ran. I thought I was protecting you both from the mess that I had become." "Protecting us?" I echoed, disbelief tinging my voice. "You were the one who hurt us the most. Do you realize that?" "I do," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Leaving was the worst mistake of my life. I was scared of becoming what my own parents were, disappointed and broken. I didn't want to pass that on to Emily, to you. I grappled with her words. The part of me that had once loved her fiercely fought to keep resentment at bay. "So what? You think you can just walk back and like everything's okay?" "I don't expect forgiveness," she said earnestly, "but I want to try to make things right. Emily deserves to know her mother. She deserves to have both of us, even if it's complicated." The scab on my heart felt freshly torn open, raw and vulnerable in the chill of the evening air. "You don't just pick up where you left off," I warned softly. "Trust isn't something you can unbreak." She opened her mouth to respond. A passerby, an elderly man with a kind smile, awkwardly interrupted us, sensing our heaviness. He approached, holding a small bag of treats. "Excuse me," he said with a gentle chuckle. "I couldn't help but overhear that ice cream is in demand. A little something for the lovely girl holding the lattice hand?" Emily's eyes sparkled with delight as the man knelt and offered her the bag filled with colorful candies. "Thank you," she squeaked, breaking into a grin that melted the tension in the air, if only for a moment. I could feel my heart soften as she hugged the old man tightly, who patted her back with a warmth that seemed to melt away. "Our worries. Never underestimate the power of sweetness," the man said, looking at me with knowing eyes. "It often lights the way." He waved a kind goodbye and continued on his way, leaving us in the aftermath of his grace. Emily's laughter filled the air again, fleeting joy reminding me that sometimes hope and tenderness can resurface in the most unexpected of moments. And yet, the weight of our complex struggles still loomed large over us. "See?" Emily's mother said softly, a glimmer of hope igniting in her voice. "We can rebuild. We just need to treat each other with kindness." But before she could finish, another surprise struck like a bolt from the blue. I looked down the street and was stunned to see a figure walking toward us, distant yet familiar. My heart raced as I squinted to catch a glimpse of the unmistakable long hair. The old memories surged as a sense of dread wrapped around me like a vice. "Diana?" I whispered, stunned as the realization hit me. It was my sister, the one who had vanished into thin air years ago amid the chaos that followed Emily's birth. My heart raced as every emotion I had hidden away surged back to life, threatening to spill out in a rush of confusion and fear. I could hardly process what this could mean for all of us. As hope clashed with the unresolved hurt of the past, I braced myself for yet another storm on the horizon. The world around me faded into a blur as I focused on the unmistakable figure approaching. Diana's silhouette carved its way through the shadows of confusion that had enveloped our family for years. The memory of her laughter rang in my ears like a haunting echo, a bittersweet reminder of the warmth we had lost. She had been a beacon of light during some of our darkest days until she wasn't. "Luke," Emily's mother called, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from the impending moment, my heart thrumming with uncertainty and hope. People surged past us on the sidewalk, oblivious to the tempest brewing in my chest. Diana stepped closer, her expression marked by hesitation that mirrored my own. The eyes that once sparkled with mischief now shimmered with a guarded weariness. Time had carved lines of experience into her youthful face, lines that spoke of struggle, survival, and perhaps wisdom gained too late. "Luke," she finally whispered, taking a tentative step forward and stopping short as if afraid of crossing an invisible boundary. "Too hurt about what had happened. I wanted to see you and Emily." For a brief moment, 1,000 questions cascaded through my mind, but I could barely form the words. Instead, I found myself instinctively stepping back, doubt creeping in with each heartbeat. "You just left us," I breathed, the pain of her absence still fresh. "You disappeared without a word, just like Mom." Her shoulders slumped, as if my words were stones she had anticipated but dreaded nonetheless. "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "I thought I could keep myself safe by staying away from the chaos. I thought it would protect you both. Protect us?" My voice rose, laced with disbelief. "How could you think that leaving would protect anyone? Everyone we cared about just vanished, one by one." "I was running away, Luke," she admitted, tears pooling in her eyes. "I thought if I distanced myself from all of it, I could spare us the pain we endured. I was terrified of watching history repeat itself." Emily, oblivious to the gravity of the reunion unfolding before her, gleefully shared her stash of candies with a nearby squirrel. The innocent joy she still possessed a contrast to the storm brewing in our hearts. A tiny flicker of warmth glowed in my chest, born of her laughter that intertwined with the fraught air, reminding me of the simple moments before everything fell apart that I never meant to hurt you. Diana continued, her words tumbling out, desperate and fragmented. "I was lost, Luke, and the longer I stayed away, the easier it became to just stay gone." "Easier for you?" I shot back, emotions boiling in a way I hadn't expected. "What about us? You didn't think about how it would affect Emily growing up without her aunt? How could you?" "I know," she insisted, her voice rising slightly, "and I regret every day that I've missed. I want to be here now for her, for you. Please." But her earnestness didn't wash away the years of hurt. I could feel the walls I had built around my heart fortifying themselves, protecting me from a return to the pain that had threatened to consume my family. "You can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to be okay," I reminded her more gently, realizing that the dream of a united family felt painfully naive. Before she could respond, Lila stepped into the space between us, sensing the palpable tension thickening the air. "Maybe we can take it one step at a time," she suggested, her tone measured and calming. "Rebuilding relationships doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Trust must be earned, and love relearned." Diana nodded, her eyes glistening with hope intertwined with guilt. "I'm willing to do anything," she promised, her voice breaking. "Just let me be a part of her life again." I stole a glance at Emily, who was now drawing in the dirt with a stick, blissfully unaware of the weight of our conversation. A part of me longed for the simplicity of those moments, the unadulterated happiness she embodied. Yet, the protective instincts within me warred with the possibility of connection and healing. I opened my mouth, ready to voice my hesitations. A sudden commotion erupted in the distance. A group of teenagers emerged from a nearby alley, raucous laughter piercing the air. Everything felt magnified in unexpected ways, heightening my anxiety about where this day might lead. Yet, just as swiftly, transformation swept through our little gathering as their laughter jolted Emily from her serene state. The sound of joy was infectious, and she turned toward us, her face lighting up with excitement. "Can we go play?" she exclaimed, eyes glimmering with the urgency of childhood dreams. The innocence in her voice tugged at my heart, reminding me of what was at stake. But before I could answer, one of the teenagers tripped, stumbling into a nearby parked car. "Hey!" he yelled, anger flaring. "Watch where you're going." The moment unraveled into chaos, shouts echoed, and suddenly our small group was swallowed by the unfolding drama, the weight of emotions dissipating into the frenzy. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of something even more troubling. A figure loomed beyond the crowd, a shadow from my past surfacing in a violent clash of memories. My blood ran cold as an unmistakable chill gripped my spine. I had not expected to see him here. He was back from the darkness, a piece of our lost years, and he was not alone. "Luke," he called, his voice slicing through the noise like a knife. My heart raced, and dread flooded my veins as I absorbed the implications of his presence. The world around me blurred again, excitement draining into anxiety. With him standing there, the fragile hope of rebuilding felt perilously on the edge of collapse. The laughter of the teenagers faded into background noise, overtaken by the pounding of my heart and the dread pooling in my stomach. This familiar figure, one I thought was long gone, now loomed in front of me. Jack stood there, a storm of emotions masked behind a crooked smile that ignited a volcano of conflicting feelings inside me. "Luke." Surprise. "It's been a minute, huh?" he called out, too jovial for the malevolence that his presence conjured. I felt the air shift as my world compressed into an unbearable tightness. Jack was the last ghost I wanted to resurface amid this heart-wrenching reunion. Memories of betrayal flickered through my mind, the nights, swathed in uncertainty, the coldness that had seeped into our family from his discord. "What are you doing here?" I managed to grind out, my voice barely a whisper among the rising chaos. "We need to talk." "Man," he said, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of something darker. "I heard about everything. You, Emily, Diana, you guys are all back together again." Before I could respond, I felt Diana's presence shift beside me, her body tightening as if she sensed the turmoil brewing beneath the surface, the old scars that had never fully healed. "You shouldn't be here," she interjected, her tone sharper than I had expected. "Oh, that's rich, coming from you," he shot back, anger igniting a fire in his eyes. "You think you can just waltz back in and play the part of the family? You don't get to ruin lives and then stumble back when it's convenient." That moment, I wanted to lean against Diana for support, to find solace in her presence when I had been so guarded for years, but the venom in Jack's voice held me in place, rooted in the memories of betrayal and abandonment. "This isn't your concern, Jack. You made your choices," I replied, trying to push him away emotionally. "This is very much my concern, Luke. You think I don't care? I know what you've been through. I was there. I saw it all unfold," he insisted, his eyes narrowing. As he spoke, the laughter from Emily grew distant, her infectious joy swallowed by the heaviness of the confrontation. The innocence she carried was a poignant reminder of what was at stake: her future, her experiences, her happiness. Just then, a flicker of movement on the fringes of the crowd caught my attention. I glanced over and saw a waitress, her apron lightly dusted with flour, radiating warmth despite the chaos. She was kneeling beside Emily, engaging her in a game of pretend with imaginary animals while the tumult played out nearby. For a moment, all the noise receded, and the beauty of such a simple human moment breathed life back into my heart. I hadn't noticed until now how desperately I craved that kind of tenderness, how I longed for a world where love, even in small doses, could exist among all this darkness. "That I don't want this for her," I said quietly, hoping my words would soften Jack, but he only laughed bitterly. "Too late for wishes, my friend. The world isn't kind to people like us," he said dismissively. "You think you can patch things up just like that? You're still bleeding, just like the rest of us. You don't know anything about my life anymore." I snapped, rage surging as I felt the walls of my resolve rattling. "I'm trying to create something good for Emily. And you, what do you want?" To drag us back into that chaos? His gaze darkened. Believe me, I have no intention of dragging anyone back. But secrets have a way of surfacing, Luke. You think you've put the past behind you, but it doesn't work that easily. There are eyes everywhere, waiting to at his words. A foreboding chill slithered down my spine. It stirred up memories I had tried to bury, reminding me of the pain entwined with our shared histories. Somewhere hidden in Jack's shadow was a truth I wasn't ready to confront, the haunting fear that everything I was working for could vanish with one wrong step. Emily giggled and waved to the waitress with her wide smile, shining like a beacon in my heart. I realized the stakes were higher than I ever anticipated. Just leave, I said, my voice more defiant now, even as I felt it falter. You don't belong here. But as Jack's expression warped from amusement to something darker, I knew that the confrontation was far from over. You're not the only one with things to lose, Luke. Just remember that, he warned, before turning on his heel and disappearing into the throngs of people, a menacing specter taking aim at everything I had fought to rebuild. Turning to Diana, I could almost see the questions swirling in her eyes, the desire to understand battling with the fear of what she had lost. What did he mean? She pressed, her voice filled with trepidation. I don't know. I don't want to know, I replied, frustration pouring out like a flood. All I want is for Emily to know joy. I don't want her to pay for our mistakes. She reached for my hand, her grip soft but firm, anchoring me against the anxieties that threatened to spiral out of control. We'll face this together, she promised, determination lacing her words. I won't let the past define us. But the tension still hung thick in the air, a web of unresolved issues shrouding the fragile threads of hope I was trying to weave. I couldn't shake the nagging sensation that something darker was lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. A truth yet to be uncovered, a challenge yet to be faced. Emily wrapped her arms around my waist. Looking up at me with unwavering trust, I felt the pull of destiny, a desperate longing for a simple life infused with laughter, clarity, and the prospect of true love. Yet everywhere I turned, the shadows of the past loomed, threatening to drag us back down. That I couldn't fathom what secrets Jack hinted at, but deep down, I feared. I feared it would change everything I had hoped to build, and just when I thought we'd begun to heal, the past was clawing its way back to the surface. The sunlight filtered through the window, casting soft golden rays that danced across the wooden floorboards of the cafe where I sat, nursing the uneaten remnants of breakfast. Emily was still captivated by the waitress' enchanting tales of dragons and knights, her laughter bringing warmth to the encroaching chill of my thoughts. Yet, the serenity of the moment felt like a fragile bubble about to burst. Diana sat across from me, her fingers absently tracing the rim of her coffee cup, a portrait of contemplation. It felt surreal, having her here after all we had endured. I wished I could bask in the safety of our connection, but the specter of Jack's warning loomed like a dark cloud over our heads. Things to lose, he had said, and I knew in my gut that his words carried an unsettling weight. I can't stop thinking about what Jack said, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Each confession felt like a risky venture, revealing vulnerabilities I had worked so hard to shield. What if there are secrets? What if? I faltered, unable to voice the fears that tumbled inside my chest. Diana met my gaze with fierce determination. We'll confront whatever it is. Together. You're not alone anymore, she assured me, her voice steady, yet tinged with an underlying fear of the unknown. We both understood the stakes, but the strength beneath her words pushed against the panic swelling inside me. If responding to my turmoil. The waitress approached our table with a brilliant smile, her eyes sparkling with kindness. Can I get you anything else? She asked, her presence a refreshing balm. The warmth radiating from her felt genuine, a reminder that goodness still existed even amid chaos. No, thank you. You've made our morning beautiful, I said, looking from Diana to Emily, who was cradling the remnants of her makeshift plush toy, a napkin shaped like a small dragon. The waitress chuckled softly, her laughter like a gentle breeze dispelling the tension lingering between us. But I am glad to hear that. Children have a way of reminding us to find joy in the simplest things, she replied, before kneeling to Emily's level. And you, little dragon keeper, are quite good at making magic happen, she said, her hand brushing against Emily's hair, igniting a spark of connection. Emily beamed, her delight infectious, and for a brief moment, we were transported away from the shadows threatening our lives. The waitress' kindness illuminated my heart, whispering that perhaps, just perhaps, there were people out there willing to help stabilize the unsteady ground we were treading on. Where do you find your magic? Emily asked, her innocent curiosity unabashed. Though I collect it from everywhere: stories, dreams, and of course, from every child's imagination, the waitress said, her eyes twinkling. Everyday moments can be transformed into extraordinary adventures if we let them. After she left, a quiet calm enveloped us. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that the peace was merely a facade. My heart was tangled with too many uncertainties. I glanced at Diana, who was looking at me thoughtfully. Luke, she began, her voice a soft whisper, what are you thinking about? What if the past isn't staying buried? What if it comes back to haunt us? I confessed, the weight of my insecurities spilling out. What if I can't protect you or Emily when the truth surfaces? Diana reached across the table, her fingers resting gently against mine, a small gesture of reassurance. We can discuss the past, but we should also look toward the future. What do you want it to be? She asked, searching my eyes for an answer. I hesitated, envisioning a life filled with laughter, Emily running across a sun-drenched field, Diana by my side, but the haunting shadows of Jack clouded my vision once more. I want to be happy, to have what we deserve. But is that even possible? I murmured, my voice cracking. In that moment, the waitress reappeared, a glowing aura surrounding her as she placed a bouquet of colorful flowers on our table like a token of hope. For the little dragon keeper and her brave knight, she said, her eyes twinkling. Everyone needs a reminder of beauty, don't you think? A wave of warmth enveloped me. Her act of kindness was unexpected but powerful, stirring a yearning deep within me. Emily clapped her hands in delight, her eyes wide with wonder. I saw the glimmer of hope flourishing in her innocence, a vitality that pushed back against the darkness. As we gathered ourselves to leave, I felt a stirring in my heart, a tentative resolve to believe in that hope again. But just as I turned to say goodbye to the waitress, I noticed a familiar figure flitting past the cafe's entrance. Jack. His eyes locked onto mine, a menacing chill weaving through the warmth of the moment. My heart raced, panic squeezing my lungs as I realized he had come back. Had he followed us? What did he want now? As he disappeared into the distance, leaving behind a gnawing sense of dread, I felt time slow as the hope I had grasped so tightly began to slip through my fingers. What's wrong? Diana asked, noticing the change in my expression. But I couldn't give words to my fear, caught in the whirlwind of uncertainty that danced ominously above us. Together, we stepped into the world outside, where the warm sun flickered like a promise of brighter days, but shadows clung to us like unwanted fog, waiting to turn our fragile dreams into a haunting reality. With every step, I clung to one thought: would our journey lead us into the light, or deeper into the darkness? The afternoon sun cast long shadows as we left the cafe, its earlier warmth quickly giving way to a crisp breeze that whispered ominous warnings in each rustle of fallen leaves. The weight on my shoulders felt heavier than before, my mind racing to keep up with the flickering images of Jack's menacing figure. Where had he been lurking? What had he seen? Diana's grasp tightened around my hand, her presence grounding yet electrifying with unsaid fears. Luke, talk to me, she urged, her voice gentle, yet firm with unyielding concern. That I saw him. I managed to breathe out, feeling a shudder run down my spine. I saw Jack. He's back. The admission sent ripples of anxiety through us both, stirring memories of dread that we had hoped were long buried beneath layers of our fragile new beginning. Diana paused, her eyes widening with understanding, a mirror of my tumultuous feelings. What do we do? She asked as a knot tightened in her stomach, her serene demeanor slipping as the implications of Jack's return settled in like a heavy fog. That I shook my head, struggling to find a foothold in the confusion. I don't know. He could threaten everything we have tried to build. I can't let him near you or Emily. The image of Jack's face punctured my resolve, igniting a tempest of anxiety about our safety. Unbeknownst to me, Emily had been quietly observing us, her innocent eyes following the subtle shifts in our moods. Daddy, are you sad? She asked, her voice cutting through the thick tension like a soft ray of sunshine breaking through dark clouds. I knelt to her level, the world around me fading as I focused on her. Not sad, sweetheart. Just thinking. We all have worries sometimes, but we're okay. My heart twisted at the lie, but her unwavering smile ignited a flicker of magic in my chest. What if we find a way to make the worries go away? She suggested, her face scrunched in serious contemplation, a mini-adventurer driven by unyielding optimism. Like the dragon keeper in my stories. We can protect each other, her words wrapped around me like a soothing balm, reminding me of the innocence we were here to preserve. You're right, I replied, ruffling her hair. We can face anything together, right? Diana watched our exchange with a faint smile, the corners of her lips lifted amidst the shadow. Kids really do have an incredible sense of hope, she mused, a spark rekindling in her eyes. As we made our way down the bustling street, the world pulsated with life and laughter. Stray rays of light broke through the scattered clouds, igniting the scene with possibilities that felt distant to me. I took a deep breath, trying to settle the storm within. The cafe, the waitress, and Emily were all pieces of a puzzle I desperately wanted to preserve. But with Jack lurking, I feared that every piece might come tumbling down. The sound of distant laughter from a nearby park beckoned us, and we walked closer, hoping for the solace of our daughter's joy to cancel out the shadows. As I watched her play, spinning in circles amongst the leaves, I felt a small part of me loosen its grip on fear. Wasn't that the magic I sought? The moment steeped not in anxiety but in love and laughter, just as the waitress had reminded us. As Emily twirled, she tripped and fell onto the soft grass, laughter slipping from her lips as she rolled onto her back, gazing up at the sky. It was blissful, pure. It was everything I wanted to hold on to. Are you okay, Dragon Keeper? Diana called out, her voice echoing across the distance, coated in warmth. Yep, just catching my breath. But there are so many dragons up there, Emily exclaimed, pointing upward, embodying the innocence that made the world feel magical even in uncertainty. Suddenly, Diana turned her gaze towards a nearby bench, where an elderly man sat, observing Emily with a kind smile. Look at him, she whispered, gesturing subtly. He seems joyful, like he's been touched by something good. That I glanced at the manna-warm twinkle in his eye akin to the waitress, as if he too held stories of hope within him. The stranger waved at Emily, and she waved back. Enthusiastically, an unspoken bond forming in that simple exchange. As I stood, absorbing the brightness that radiated from my daughter, a familiar chill crawled up my spine again, darker this time, as I recalled the fleeting glimpse of Jack. The man turned to me, sensing my unease. Despite our paths being strangers, he offered an enigmatic smile that ignited a memory, a deep understanding that desperately whispered of connections beyond fear. Before I could ponder further, the man rose, approaching us with the grace of someone who had walked through myriad storms, yet held steadfast. Your daughter has a beautiful spirit, he said, extending a hand to Emily. She's a dragon in her own right. Emily giggled, clearly delighted. In the best dragon keeper ever. She piped up, and in that moment, a wave of warmth ignited within me again. Yet, before I could respond, a sudden commotion erupted nearby, as I spotted Jack at the fringes of our sanctuary, watching, calculating each familiar glint radiating danger. My heart raced, the world crashing down around me. Luke? Diana's voice trembled with concern as she noticed the sudden shift in my demeanor, her eyes darting toward Jack's imposing figure. And there it was, a haunting realization surged through me. Jack wasn't simply lurking anymore. He was moving, and it wasn't just our peace at stake. I felt like everything I cared for was poised at the edge, teetering on destruction. Run, I whispered, the command barely leaving my lips as time came to a screeching halt. Fear melded with instinct. I had to protect Emily and Diana, even if it meant confronting darkness head-on. But as the words hung in the air, the elderly man stepped back, glancing between the shadows and us, his face shifting from comfort to concern. Be careful, young ones, he cautioned, his voice deep and knowing. And just like that, as panic crescendoed and I steeled myself for the storm ahead, Jack smirked a haunting grin that promised chaos. As darkness loomed above, one question echoed in my heart. Would that fleeting light we had found be enough to break through the encroaching shadows, or would we plunge deeper into a nightmare that threatened to swallow us whole? The air grew thick with tension. The laughter from the park suddenly stripped away, leaving just the raw beat of my heart hammering in my chest. Diana's eyes flitted back to Emily, whose joy now seemed like a fragile glass bauble, one that could shatter with a single wrong move. "Luke, what are you doing?" Diana's voice was barely louder than a whisper, each word laced with fear, as if saying it out loud could summon that darkness closer. "Just get Emily," I urged, my voice shaking, grounding myself in the urgent need to shield them. Emily, unaware of the storm brewing around us, continued her innocent game, laughing and pretending to conquer imaginary dragons. The elderly man who had approached us seemed caught in the middle of our chaos, a wise observer turned unwilling participant. He frowned slightly, his eyes flicking back and forth between us and Jack, who leaned casually against a tree, the very picture of calculated malice. "Who is that?" the old man asked softly, concern etched on his face that a ghost. My mouth tasted bitter as I described the man who had cast a long shadow over our lives. "Hesse need to handle this stuff, You need to protect your family first," he implored, his voice steady, cutting through my mounting dread. "Fear can summon shadows, but love can banish them." The words wrapped around me like iron chains, carrying an undeniable weight. I wanted to scream at Jack, to confront him directly, but every instinct screamed to keep my loved ones safe. Clenching my fists, I bid the man farewell with my eyes, ready to spring into action when Emily's laughter shattered the stillness again. "Daddy, look at the pictures in the sky." Her voice rang out with the innocence that made my heart ache. I stole a glance at her, seeing her spin beneath the wide, open sky, oblivious to the looming threat. "Emily, honey, let's play a different game," I called, my voice filled with forced optimism. But it was too late. Jack sauntered toward us, a predator reveling in the joy of the hunt. "Ah, what a lovely family reunion," he crooned, smooth like ice, yet cracking under the pressure of his malevolence. "How precious it is to see children at play." Diana tightened her grip on Emily, tugging her closer. I could see the wheels in her mind turning, the unspoken plan forming, and all I could do was anchor myself, a shield against the wind that threatened to whip us into chaos. "Leave us alone, Jack," I growled, forcing every ounce of my anger into those words, though inside, confusion whirled like a tempest. "You have no right to be here," his laughter rumbled, echoing through the park as if mocking my feeble stance. "No right. The world has a funny way of turning, doesn't it? You think you can simply run away from your past?" "I am your past." Luke, the tidal wave of resentment crashed over me, merging with the current of fear swirling inside. Every moment I had fought for my family felt like shards of glass scraping at my heart as Jack stood before us, seemingly unfazed by the shift in mood. "Leave now," Diana insisted, her voice trembling but fierce. "You don't belong here anymore." "How sweet," Jack purred, his gaze flitting from me to the elderly man, who still watched with cautious resolve. "You think you can protect him? You think you can protect her? The girl is part of this mess now. Don't you dare," I hissed, stepping forward, my body inching closer to Diana and Emily, as if to shield them from the shadows encroaching upon our bubble of happiness. "You will not touch her," Jack smirked, reveling in my protectiveness. "Then you know where this ends, don't you? How many times must we play this game? Your bravado means nothing to me now." Emily jolted at the intensity, her laughter dying in an instant. "Daddy?" she murmured, her sweet, small face twisted with confusion. "Stand back." "Emily," I commanded, my heart breaking at the fear that crept into her voice. But she took a step forward instead, her fingers reaching towards me, feeling the tension like an unseen wall. "Daddy, can we really not just talk?" Jack threw back his head and laughed, an unsettling blend of mirth and menace. "Children are so delightfully naive, aren't they? They think kindness can soften the hardest of hearts. Not all hearts are hard," Emily declared boldly, surprising even me with her conviction. Her stance wavered, but the flame of belief she held was unyielding. For a fleeting moment, Jack seemed disarmed. I saw the flicker of confusion dance behind his eyes as if caught off guard by the unyielding spirit of a child. A moment of doubt a flash before the storm, but then it returned, darker and more menacing than before. Then let's put that to the test, shall we? He stepped backward, a puppeteer pulling strings, beckoning from the distance. You'll find that kindness isn't enough in a world full of wolves. In that moment, time warped and twisted around me. I felt the weight of his words dig into the air. Fear crested with a current stronger than any storm. I looked at Diana, whose eyes mirrored the urgency and horror blooming in my chest. No, I shouted, desperate and frantic. His words were a knife, plunging into the fragile fabric holding us together. But just as Jack took another step backward, the elderly man joined my side, creating a barrier that wasn't part of the plan. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is stand together, he declared, his voice as soft yet powerful as the earth beneath our feet. Jack seemed to hesitate, just for a flicker of time, and with that hesitation, I felt a surge of hope bloom beneath the weight of dread. If kindness could pierce through the storms, it might yet provide us a glimmer of light. And yet, as I held Emily's hopeful gaze, the foreboding shadows loomed closer, taunting me, and it dawned upon me that Jack was not alone. His storm had allies waiting in the grass, concealed and waiting for the moment to pounce. Luke, Diana breathed, and with that, cold dread pooled in my stomach at the realization that the greatest confrontation might not be against Jack alone, but against the silence of those still watching, choosing to remain hidden while our world threatened to crumble. And as the laughter faded into the distance, a chilling thought washed over me. If the support I relied on was as fragile as the moment, my anchor slipping away as dark clouds above churned, ready to unleash their fury. The true battle had only just begun, and no matter how valiantly I fought, the stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. The air crackled with tension as I faced Jack, the specter of my past resurrected and stalking the fragile fabric of my present. I could feel the uncertainty swirling around me, thick and suffocating. Diana stood steadfast beside me, her grip on Emily tightening, as if that alone could shield us from the inevitable storm brewing between us and the man who had cast a long, dark shadow over our lives. Emily, sweetheart, stay close, I urged, my voice strained but resolute. We need to be careful. Her wide eyes were filled with innocence and unyielding trust, the embodiment of everything I had fought for, and at that moment, I felt the weight of my failures flooding my heart. Just as I had begun to believe in the possibility of healing, the very darkness I had sought to escape clawed its way back, threatening to drag me down once more. Jack leaned back against the tree, watching as the corners of his mouth turned up in that mockingly casual smile, a liar's grin dripping with poison. So what's it to be, superhero? You going to threaten me with your little family? You seriously believe that protecting them will keep them safe? You think you can shake me with your words? I fired back, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anger. Whatever shadows you think you have over me, they don't have power here. I won't let you hurt them. Each word was a promise, a lifeline I held on to as he sneered. Lingering like a specter in the gaps between moments, Diana turned to me, her voice low but fierce. We can't give in to anger or fear. We have to stand together. Her eyes shone with determination that pulled at my heartstrings, igniting a flicker of hope in the dark. Yes, the elderly man beside us chimed in, his voice calm and soothing. Kindness and unity are our allies in the face of darkness. Jack's sinister laugh sent a chill through the air. Kindness? You think that means anything here? You're too late, Luke. This is no fairy tale. This is real life, messy, chaotic, full of broken hearts and broken people. But Emily, with her intuitive wisdom, stepped slightly forward, though uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Why don't you try being nice? She asked, her voice as innocent as a child should be, yet ringing with authority. Maybe kindness will help you too. For just a moment, the world around us dimmed. The weight of her words pierced through the brewing tension. Time stood still as Jack blinked, perhaps taken aback by the purity emanating from my daughter. Too naive for your own good. Girl, he hissed, shaking his head. No, you're wrong, Emily replied, her confidence growing despite the shadow's loom. Everyone deserves a second chance, just like Mommy did. Her innocent insistence shocked everyone, and in that instant, something shifted. But Jack wasn't done. His eyes narrowed, anger radiating from him like a palpable force. You think you understand? You think you can just waltz through life, spreading happiness like a butterfly, and expect it to work? You're so painfully ignorant. That anger struck me like an arrow. I stepped closer, standing between him and Emily, my heart racing. It's not about ignorance. It's about refusing to let fear run our lives. My daughter carries light in her heart, something you've forsaken completely. He laughed bitterly, that sound echoing through the park like a death knell. But beneath the anger, I sensed a flicker of uncertainty in his gaze, the first crack in his armor. You think you can just ignore the past? You think love will save you? The words dripped with mockery, but I could feel it. In that moment, I was not alone. Diana, the man, and Emily stood firmly at my side, a fortress of light against his encroaching dark. It might not erase the scars, but it can teach us to heal, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. None of us are perfect, but we can choose to fight for the good. All eyes fell upon Emily, whose small frame was enveloped in unwavering belief. Let's start now. Let's create a new story. Like we're in a fairy tale? Huh? Jack snarled, repulsed by our resolve. But there was something different in him now. Uncertainty danced across his features, and for the first time, he looked unsure. Just then, the elderly man stepped closer, his presence a quiet strength amidst the chaos. You might think you're the wolf in this story, but sometimes the bravest wolves wear the kindest masks. I see the light in those fighting against you. Jack flinched, that same uncertainty bleeding into the very core of his self-assuredness. What the hell do you know? He spat, but his bravado wavered, the grip he held on that darkness, too, beginning to crack. Much more than you think, my friend, the man replied. I've seen lives transformed, even amidst the darkest storms. But they couldn't do it alone. Suddenly, I felt an almost imperceptible shift in the air. A sliver of vulnerability emerged from Jack's facade, exposed by the unyielding light that surrounded us. We don't need to hate each other, I pressed, my voice softer now, embers of compassion pushing through the tension. We can stand strong together or remain shattered forever. The choice is yours. Jack's gaze darted around, assessing the warmth igniting behind us, the very foundation of our unity. With each passing second, I felt the storm begin to shift beneath our feet. What do you know about me? He scoffed, but it was a hollow attempt to mask the uncertainty that began to surface. The air hummed with genuine concern, and in that moment, a spark of understanding bridged the chasm between us. Time slowed as if the universe was holding its breath, waiting for Jack to speak, to reveal some fragment of a truth that had once torn our lives apart. We're all broken, Jack, I said, my voice steady yet gentle, but it doesn't have to define us. Not anymore. Jack's defenses trembled, revealing glimpses of the fear that lay beneath the hardened exterior he had built so carefully. You think you can change that with your little speeches? His voice cracked at the edge, and in that moment, everything hung on a precipice. But before I could respond, Emily stepped forward, her little hand reaching out toward Jack. Sometimes, people just need a friend, she said, her trust unwavering. I bet if you let us, we could help you find your happy parts, too. Tears welled in my eyes, feeling the weight of her innocence colliding with the reality of Jack's pain. In that moment, Emily's belief in him functioned like a lighthouse through dark seas, illuminating the chaotic storm that separated us. Jack stared down at her, shock mixing with a tidal wave of emotions that bore down on him. For too long, he had been doused in bitterness and resentment, fighting a lonesome battle that demanded he stay shrouded in darkness. And yet, here stood this small child, pure, fearless, extending love despite all he had wrought. You don't know what you're asking, he murmured, vulnerability slipping into his tone, his bravado failing in the face of her brightness. No, but I want to help you, Emily insisted, eyes shining with undiluted hope. You were my friend once, sir, you can be again. As if tethered to her words, a breath hitched in Jack's throat, and the shadows he wore on his shoulders began to melt. He faltered, the hardness vanishing like dew beneath a rising sun. It's not that easy. Maybe not, I echoed, stepping forward to stand beside Emily. But nothing's ever truly impossible when faced with love. We all deserve to heal, Jack, even you. The air around us shifted, the tension uncoiling as the enormity of the moment seeped in. Hope began to sharpen in his gaze, mingling with uncertainty. as if battling the very core of the darkness he had wrapped himself in for too long. For a moment, long moments that stretched the fabric of time, we stood there, connected by shared experiency, a flicker of humanity in a tangled web of chaos. That I don't know what happens next, Jack finally managed, the words a hesitant admission. But I don't want to be alone anymore. I took a deep breath, the weight of those simple words pulling us closer to healing, a tiny victory born from the ashes of painful memories. Then let's take that journey together, starting with truth and kindness. The warmth of a new beginning scored the edges of our fragile circle, and I could feel the clenching in my heart loosen. Priorities wrestled down to a singular truth. Forgiveness was not a destination but a journey, and it began right there beneath the dancing leaves. As Jack took a tentative step forward, hesitating between his past and the opportunity for a new beginning, I looked at Emily and Diana, love anchoring me in the moment, binding us against the dark. For all the storms we had faced, this day held the promise of so much more than survival. This was Hopi, a fragile yet mighty force, ignited by belief and fueled by love. Let's rewrite the story, I whispered softly, a vow echoing in my heart as I reached for the hands of those I loved. We'll do it together. In that shared breath, in the awakenings of tangled hearts, I could see the dawn beginning to break, a gentle chase against the shadows, proof that these fragments we held so dear were alive and vibrant, ready to illuminate the path forward, amidst the uncertainties of tomorrow. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, I couldn't help but believe that together, we could chase away the darkness and rise, a family reborn in the glow of newfound love. Are you ready? I asked, holding on tightly to their hands, a circle of resilience as we took the first tentative steps into the future. With deep breaths and renewed courage, we moved forward, empowered by kindness and the promise of brighter tomorrows, ready to embrace whatever came next. Because in that moment, I realized that love wasn't just the force that could create a new beginning. It was everything we needed to take it. It was, and always would be, the answer. Let's go find those dragons, I said, smiling at Emily, her laughter ringing out like a sweet melody, guiding us away from the shadows and into the waiting light. And that moment, standing together, I knew we had the power to transcend the storms. Love would lead the way,